Every man who ate it found himself coming back for more, again and again and again. But what really made her cooking different was what she did before she started. Every evening, before touching a single pot, Mama Titi would close the kitchen door, light 3 red candles, and hum a strange tune. In the small town of Koko, there was a hotel that every man visited at least once in his life. Mama Titi's hotel. It wasn't the biggest, it wasn't the fanciest, and it definitely wasn't the cleanest. The cockroaches walked around like they paid rent. But men kept going there, and once they entered, nobody knew when they would come out. Mama Titi was no ordinary woman. She wasn't young, she wasn't the most beautiful, and she wore the same red dress almost every day. But she had something that made men lose their senses. Some said it was her cooking. 1 spoon of her spicy goat soup and a man would forget he had a wife and children waiting for him at home. Others said it was her laughter, deep, rich and dangerous, like a lioness that just caught her prey. The women of Koko were tired. Their husbands left to buy bread, and somehow ended up spending 3 days at Mama Titi's hotel. Some even forgot to come home completely. One woman, Mama Kalu, got so angry that she marched to the hotel, kicked the door open and dragged her husband out by his ear. But guess what? The next week he was back there again. Mama Titi's food was, surprisingly, nothing special. Her jollof rice was just rice and tomato stew, nothing like the magical, smoky kind that made people fight at weddings. Her pepper soup was spicy, yes, but not the type that made you see your ancestors. And her roasted goat meat? Well, let's just say some people suspected it was more bone than meat. Yet men still swore that her food was the best they had ever tasted. But what really made her cooking different was what she did before she started. Every evening, before touching a single pot, Mama Titi would close the kitchen door, light 3 red candles, and hum a strange tune. It was not a song anyone recognized, not a church hymn, not a folk song, and definitely not something you would hear on the radio. The sound was low and deep, like a secret being whispered to the wind. Then she would take a small wooden spoon, a spoon she never let anyone else touch, and dip it into an old clay pot filled with something nobody had ever seen. Some said it was just palm oil. Others believed it was a secret ingredient passed down by her grandmother, a woman rumoured to have married 5 men, all of whom refused to leave her side until the day they died. Whatever it was, once Mama Titi stirred that pot, her food would come out smelling just a little too good, tasting just a little too addictive, and making men feel just a little too comfortable. And that was why, no matter how ordinary her food seemed, every man who ate it found himself coming back for more, again and again and again. One evening, a new visitor arrived at Mama Titi's hotel, a man unlike any other who had stepped through her doors. His name was Pastor Jonah, a travelling preacher known for his sharp eyes, loud prayers, and ability to sniff out anything unholy from a mile away. He had been passing through Koko when he heard whispers about the mysterious hotel where men entered and forgot their way home. Curious and suspicious, he decided to see for himself. As soon as Pastor Jonah stepped inside, he noticed something strange. The air in Mama Titi's hotel was thick, not just with the smell of roasting meat and palm oil, but with something else, something heavy, something unseen. The other men in the dining area sat with dreamy smiles, chewing slowly, their eyes half closed as if they were in another world. Mama Titi greeted him with her usual warm smile. "Ah, man of God, you must be hungry. Sit, sit. Let me bring you my special pepper soup." Pastor Jonah nodded cautiously and took a seat. Soon a steaming bowl was placed before him. The smell was rich and inviting, but the moment he picked up the spoon, his spirit shuddered. He paused. He had eaten all kinds of food in his travels, but never before had his soul reacted this way to a simple meal. He closed his eyes and whispered a quick prayer. When he opened them again, something was different. The soup in front of him seemed to shimmer for a second, like a shadow moving beneath the surface. His stomach tightened. Whatever was in this food, it was not just pepper and goat meat. Lifting his head, he looked around at the other men, who were eating like men under a spell. None of them seemed to notice anything unusual, but Pastor Jonah knew. Something was wrong. Slowly, he set down his spoon and looked up at Mama Titi, who was watching him closely, her smile still wide but her eyes sharp. "You don't like my cooking, Pastor?" she asked sweetly. Pastor Jonah smiled back, but his fingers tightened around the table's edge. "Madame," he said calmly, "what exactly do you put in your food?" Mama Titi's smile didn't waver, but her left eyebrow twitched. "Just a little." The other men in the room continued eating, completely unaware of the spiritual battle about to take place over a bowl of soup. "Ah, Pastor Jonah," Mama Titi said, swaying her wide hips as she walked closer. "You ask me what I put in my food. Just love, hard work, and the blessings of my ancestors." She placed a hand on her chest dramatically. "Do you think I will put anything bad in my own cooking? Me, Mama Titi, the best chef in Koko?" Pastor Jonah leaned back in his chair, tapping his fingers on the table. "Mama Titi, I have eaten food from many places, but never in my life has a bowl of soup spoken to my spirit." Mama Titi gasped and clutched her chest like he had just accused her of stealing church offerings. My soup spoke to you. What did it say? Did it greet you well?" The men at the other tables chuckled lazily, still half lost in whatever trance the food had placed them under. Pastor Jonah wasn't amused. He picked up the spoon again and stared at the soup. "Something is inside this food," he said, narrowing his eyes. "And something powerful?" Mama Titi wiped her hands on her wrapper and sighed. "Pastor, I am just a simple woman who likes to cook. What is all this talk of power?" Pastor Jonah suddenly closed his eyes and began to pray. "Father Lord, any spirit hiding inside this soup, I command you to reveal yourself. Holy Ghost, Pastor, wait!" Mama Titi's voice shot through the room like thunder. Everyone stopped eating. Even the cockroach that was crawling up the wall froze in place. Pastor Jonah opened one eye. "Ah, Mama Titi, why are you shouting? Is something troubling you?" Mama Titi quickly cleared her throat and forced a laugh. Me? No, I was just, concerned that you are wasting your prayer on my small soup when there are bigger problems in the world." "What of war? What of sickness? Pray for those ones, Pastor, not my innocent food." Pastor Jonah folded his arms. "Mama Titi," he said slowly, "if the food is truly innocent, why did you shout like someone stepped on your toe?" Mama Titi laughed nervously. The other men looked at her, confused, their chewing slowing down. For the first time, some of them started to wonder why they had been coming here every night without question. Pastor Jonah tapped the table. "I will pray over this soup now." Mama Titi's smile finally dropped. Her eyes darted to the soup, then to the spoon in Pastor Jonah's hand. For the first time, she looked worried. Then, just as Pastor Jonah opened his mouth to start praying again, Mama Titi did something nobody expected. She grabbed the soup bowl and ran. "Ayati!" Pastor Jonah shouted, jumping to his feet. "She's stealing her own soup! Catch her!" The entire hotel erupted into chaos. Chairs crashed, men stumbled, and Mama Titi, with surprising speed for a woman of her size, darted into the kitchen like a rat escaping hot water. Pastor Jonah wasn't about to let her escape. He kicked off his shoes, lifted his trousers, and took off after her. What exactly was she hiding? What was inside that soup? And more importantly, why was she running like her life depended on it? Pastor Jonah chased Mama Titi through the kitchen, dodging pots, pans, and one very confused cat that leapt out of the way just in time. Mama Titi, despite her size, was running like a woman possessed, gripping the soup bowl as if it contained the secrets of the universe. "Stop in the name of the Lord!" Pastor Jonah bellowed. "Pastor, leave me alone! It's just ordinary soup!" Mama Titi screamed back, but she didn't stop running. With a final burst of energy, Pastor Jonah lunged forward, grabbing the edge of Mama Titi's wrapper. She yelled as she lost her balance, skidding to the floor. The soup bowl flew into the air in slow motion, twisting and turning before crashing onto the ground with a loud splash. Everyone froze. The room went silent. The only sound was the slow, eerie sizzle of the soup soaking into the kitchen floor. Pastor Jonah bent down, poking at the spilled soup with a suspicious glare. It looked normal, smelled normal, but his spirit told him otherwise. He turned to Mama Titi, who was still sitting on the floor, breathing heavily like a guilty child caught stealing meat from the pot. "Now, talk," Pastor Jonah commanded, his voice firm. "What is inside this food? And don't tell me it's only salt and pepper, because my spirit says otherwise." Mama Titi sighed deeply and wiped her sweaty forehead. The jig was up. There was no more running, no more excuses. She looked around at the crowd of men staring at her, some still dazed, some now scratching their heads as if a spell had just been broken. "Fine," she muttered, "I will confess." She adjusted her wrapper and cleared her throat. "Every month I go to a small place, a spiritual place." "Aha!" Pastor Jonah pointed dramatically. "A witch doctor!" Mama Titi winced. Not really a full witch doctor. More like a half-witch doctor. He only does small things." Pastor Jonah's eyes widened. "What small things?" Mama Titi sighed again. I give him a white chicken, a red kola nut, and a little bit of money." For what?" Pastor Jonah pressed. Mama Titi hesitated before mumbling, For a special powder." "What kind of powder?" Pastor Jonah demanded. Mama Titi swallowed hard. "Customer attraction powder." The entire room gasped. Pastor Jonah shook his head in disappointment. "So you mean to tell me that all these men have been eating food sprinkled with juju seasoning?" Mama Titi looked down, ashamed. "Only a little, just enough to make them come back. It's not real witchcraft. If you're looking for more African folktale, please consider subscribing to my channel. It really helps me create more awesome content for you all. And don't forget to hit that notification bell so you know as soon as I upload a new video. Thanks for watching.